Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to make a start at looking through my collection of original PAL Xbox games. Now I absolutely love the Xbox. I bought it the day it came out, and since then I've been adding to my collection. Now the good news is Xbox games on the whole are pretty cheap these days, so I've made the decision to try and get a complete set. Now there are just under 900 games released on the PAL label. That's Europe, and there's a few in Australia and New Zealand as well, and I reckon I'm about a third to halfway there. So I've got a lot of the really collectible ones, and that's hopefully the backbone of the collection sort of sorted. But there's a lot of the sporting ones and things like that which I'm not really going out of my way to collect. They're just going to sort of turn up in collections. But anyway, what I thought I'd do, I break it down to about 50 or 60 games or so per video, and we'll work our way right through and you can see exactly where I'm at. So that will be the subject of today's video. So sit back, relax, and let's get to it. Right then, let's make a start on looking through my PAL Xbox game collection. So, as I said in the intro, I actually collected the Xbox literally from the day it came out. I queued up down in game. There wasn't a massive queue. I remember it was $299.99, but the price soon dropped a few months later to about $199.99. I was really annoyed by that. So anybody who bought one earlier was able to get a few, I think it was 3 or 4 free games direct from Microsoft, which wasn't bad, but I was still quite annoyed by it. Anyway, since then, I mean, best part of 20 years now, almost, I've been trying to pick up all the PAL Xbox games. So the way to tell a PAL one, just in case, is, if you don't know, is got a little PAL on the side there, usually on the front, and it was a bit like, it's difficult to comprehend now in the days of digital downloads, but back in the day, there were different territories. So America and Canada had like NTSC1, Europe, including the UK, and New Zealand and Australia had the PAL system, that's just what we had. So there are games that were released for PAL, but not for NTSC, and there's far more games that were released in America that never came out over here. And I've got a few of those because they're like absolute classics, and they should be part of any Xbox collection. So this, this is an unforgettable, or rather forgettable, game, 187 Ride or Die, which is like a it's sort of a shooter inside a car. Not too bad, I suppose, but not a classic by any means, from Ubisoft. Now this is, you'll see a few of these. So the very best games for the original Xbox did come out on this Xbox Classics label. So these are like re-releases. Now some games I've got more than one copy of, so I'll have the original and the re-release. Other ones I may just have the re-release of, but I am in effect going to try and get all the re-released ones as well, because they've got different jackets. So these 007 ones aren't bad at all. They never quite relived the glory days of GoldenEye, but out of all the James Bond games that came out for the original Xbox, my favourite by far is this one, which is From Russia With Love. They use actual dialogue from the movie. Sean Connery gave him his blessing, and he probably got a nice paycheck as well. And it is really, really good. And this one comes recommended. So out of all these Bond games for the Xbox, this is the one you might have to pay a little bit more for, but it's still not a lot. Maybe £6 to £8. I have found that with the Xbox, original Xbox, if you're patient, all the rare games turn up at a fairly reasonable price, but you do have to be patient. There are certain games like the Elder Scrolls, for example, Morrowind Game of the Year edition, which never seems to sell for less than like 20 quid. So occasionally you're just going to have to bite the bullet. But certain games that I was dreading having to pay like 40, 50 quid for, in the end, through playing the patience game, I've been able to get them quite cheap. So we'll go through those when we get to them. Now this is quite interesting. So this is like a 2-pack, and this is an exclusive 007 2-pack, which contains, in the slipcase, Everything or Nothing and GoldenEye Rogue Agent. So that's quite nice, isn't it? And I'm not sure, I think there's a few of these different like gift sets around. As far as I know, that's the only one I've got, but I believe there's at least 6 or 7 different ones of these, which is pretty cool. Something a bit more unusual to collect, you know. A limited edition, I mean, I don't know how limited they were. They were probably just binding up copies of what they had available. One of the more common games for the system, which was 13, it had massive publicity at the time, I remember. It got lots of great reviews, but, you know, I don't really rate it that much. It's sort of cartoony graphics. You know, I didn't go that much on it. And the first of what will be many, alas, sports games. So one of the drawbacks of trying to collect every PAL release is that you are going to get some of the games released like FIFA again and again and again. And the worst one is the club football games, which, well, we'll get to those when we get to them, but they are also agony. American Chopper. So another part of collecting PAL Xbox games is that you will have TV and film properties that were current at that time, much the same as today, but you're getting the ones that were around sort of 15 to 20 years ago. One of the most popular was American Chopper, and actually these games aren't too bad, so much so that in fact they did spawn a sequel, which I haven't got. The American Chopper 2 on PAL is one of those rare ones that I've just not got around to getting yet. In fact, even this one took a bit of time to get my hands on. It's Activision, and it's not actually a bad game. You sort of you're in the chop shop and you put together your own bikes, you customize them, you color them up, and then you can actually take them out on the road, which is pretty good stuff. And you have like 50 missions to do with the bike that you've built, and that's, if you're into biking, it's actually a really good game, this. So American Chopper, one to look out for, and American Chopper 2 if I get it. Amped, so there was quite a few downhill skiing games, snowboarding and skiing games for the Xbox. This is one of the better ones as well. There's of course all the SSX games as well. I like any of these downhill snowboarding games. I really enjoy playing those. There's something quite relaxing about playing those. Armed and Dangerous, little shooter here. This is a LucasArts one of my favourite labels of old. I do like all the old LucasArts games. This is like a free roaming shooter, sort of cartoony style graphics. I love retro games. If you look at the rest of my channel, you'll see I've got lots of retro games and ways that you can play retro games on different sorts of handhelds or on your phone as well. And I love my retro anthologies. This is one of the better ones. This is the Atari Anthology. So it's got 18 arcade games, 18 classic arcade games, and it's got 67 Atari 2600 games all on the one disc, so 85 in total. A really nice little front end on this as well, and this is in the days when you actually had a half decent booklet as well. This is what I miss about games today, and that you just don't have, they don't put the effort in. It's just all done on the cheap, and this is so good, you know. There you go. Now the next game, highlight of my collection, of course, Barbie Horse Adventures. Wild Horse Rescue. Now this game in actual fact is notoriously rare because it's obviously marketed at young girls, and consequently there's not that many copies around. God knows how many copies it's sold. I mean, it can't be that many. However, once again, this is one of those games that if you see someone on, say, eBay, and they've got a copy for sale and it's like 40 quid, and you think, oh well, I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet if I want it. Don't. Do you know how much I paid for this one? £2.50 on a buy it now. I just had it saved as a saved search on eBay, and one popped up, obviously from somebody who didn't really know one from another, and boom, bought it on a buy it now for £2.50, £2 postage. Absolutely over the moon with it when I got it. Look at that, got the booklet and everything. So that was a clear example sometimes of getting a game, of being patient and getting a game at a decent price if you're prepared to be patient, you know. So that's that little stack over there. Next we've got The Bard's Tale. This is a bit of a classic as well, Ubisoft. A little bit of RPG action going on there. And I don't know what it is, but I've always found RPGs a little bit weird to play on a console. I'm more into it now with my Switch, but back in the days of the Xbox, I don't know why, I just liked, even to this day, I liked quick hits, because maybe just because I'm a busy guy, No. And with RPGs, there's no obvious levels per se. Whereas if you're playing through something like Halo, well, you've got level 1, or I'm going to get to the end of level 6 and save it there and then pick it up another day. So that's just sort of how I feel with RPGs. There's sometimes, because they're so open-ended, it's difficult to like draw the line and take a break. Great little adaptation of this. So you may remember that they revived Battlestar Galactica, and this is the tie-in game to that one, and it's an absolute corker in actual fact. So also quite difficult to find a nice copy of. In fact, I don't think, yeah, it has. Yeah, mine, I've had a couple of copies, but mine, I remember now, it's got this really beaten up booklet because the game is actually quite difficult to find. Mint copies, perhaps £10 to £15, so bear that in mind if you do come across that one in a shop. Bicycle Casinos, this is just a basic casino game, lots of different ones. It's got Texas Hold'em, which became very popular in the early 2000s with the World Poker Tour, and obviously the rise of people playing poker online. Black, this is quite a tricky one to get your hands on. This one tends to go for £8 to £10. It's Criterion, a fantastic label, and as you can see, it's like a sort of a first-person shooter, maybe a precursor to Gears of War. Comes recommended this. Yeah, you might struggle to find this one for less than a tenner because it's quite sought after. Then you got some of the Blinks games. So Blinks the Time Sweeper was a Microsoft property. These games do come highly recommended, I believe. Isn't this the same people, Art Tomb? I believe it's got some of the same people who jumped over from Bungie at one point, and these games are excellent, and there's a couple of sequels as well. Blinks 2, Masters of Time and Space. I think there's a third one which I've not got, which I think is even harder to get hold of. This is Blood Omen, Legacy of Kain series. So you've probably heard of the Legacy of Kain. Crystal Dynamics, published under EDOS label. Once again, they're usually a sign of pretty good quality EDOS, and this is sort of gaming in the, I would say, in the slight Castlevania vein. So Brian Lara Cricket, so another of the sporting titles. This is Brian Lara International Cricket, 2005, and these have got their fans. Although, to be honest, I don't think there's any sporting games that I enjoy playing on the Xbox except the downhill sort of snowboarding ones. There is quite a nice cycling one, Tour de France, which I played, and that's actually pretty good because I'm into the tour. That's quite nice. Brothers in Arms, Earned in Blood. There's a few of these sort of first-person shooters. These early ones recall episodes within the Second World War, which is sort of another sort of a favourite era of mine historically to study, and these games are fantastic, although I always found the squad controls on these a bit annoying. Road to Hill 30, this is another Brothers in Arms title. Once again, they're fantastic to look at. They're historically accurate. They put a lot of effort into these, and these are really good. It's got a map as well. I mean, this is how gaming should be. When you're paying 35, 40, 50 quid for a game, you know, I expect something for my money. I don't expect a digital download, and well, not even without even a manual. It's just how I am, old-fashioned, I guess. Brute Force, one of those Microsoft Game Studio ones again. Don't think I've played. No, I haven't actually played this one, but it's sort of a bit of a shooter with a sci-fi bent on it. So it's Brute Force. What's this one here? So yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So these are also almost like hidden gems. There's a couple of Buffy ones. There's this original one, and then there's Chaos Bleeds as well. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of the gaming YouTuber Metal Jesus Rocks. Jason has a fantastic channel. He's been going a long, long time. A massive amount of followers as well. And he, with his friend Reggie, did a playthrough of this. I think it was with Reggie. He did a playthrough. No, it was with Drunken Master Paul, I believe, and they did a playthrough of the first Buffy game, and it's absolutely fantastic. They had a huge blast doing it, and I've had a play with this myself with my boy, and I can recommend both of these Buffy games. They're fantastic. Once again, these are quite sought after. The Buffy fans themselves are into it. So they collect it, so non-Xbox collectors. So they tend to go for between £8 and £10 a pop if you can find them. Burnout, well, huge fan of the Burnout series. They're fantastic. There was Burnout and there was a few sequels as well. This is once again on the Criterion label, which is, as I said, generally a sign of good quality. So that was the first Burnout for the Xbox. You then had Burnout Revenge, which was, I believe, the second one that they did. Basically more of the same. And then you had a third one, which is Burnout 3 Takedown. A really cool little trilogy, those. Once again, those ones are fairly common. They're not going to set you back a load of money to find those. Now, one thing I have been using, I'll just show you this now while we're sort of halfway through. I've got a bit of a checklist here, and it's a visual checklist of all the PAL Xbox games. And since I'm a good egg, I'm going to put a link to this exact document in the description below, and it will just link to a Google Drive where you can download a copy of this for myself, and you may want to print it off. What this is every PAL game with a picture of the box. So they run this way, and as I've got them, you see some of the ones that we've covered here, I've put a big X through them as I've got them out of my collection. And there's a lot of them, as you can imagine, and thankfully it does include all the Australian and New Zealand releases. So it gives you an idea of how far you are into your collection if this is something that you fancy doing yourself. I've found this little list invaluable, and every time I get new games I keep it up to date. I have also got a list on my computer, but it's not everything here. Basically everything that I've got I've deleted, and it's just basically a wants list of all the titles that I'm still looking for. So as you can see, it's a pretty easy way to see at a glance which ones you still need. And as I said, what I'll do, I'm going to put a link to this if you'd like to have your own copy that you can download and use yourself as a bit of a checklist, and that will be in the description down below. If you do feel inclined to buy some of these games from eBay, there will also be a link to buying old Xbox games for the original Xbox through eBay, also in the description below. And if you do that, you will be helping the channel, as I'll get a very small kickback from eBay if you end up buying any. All right. Next one then, well, an early Call of Duty, Finest Hour. Now, I've not gone out of my way to get all of these, but there are a few for the Xbox. And once again, you know exactly what you're going to be getting with a Call of Duty game. Capcom Classics collection. So Capcom, by far, one of the best classic sort of arcade gamers, and then game manufacturers, and then they came on to do well, they dominated some of the consoles, and this is 22 of their best ones, and there's some real classics here that you're just going to love. The 1942 series, there's Ghouls and Goblins, Ghouls and Ghosts. You've got Street Fighter 2 as well as Championship Edition, Super Ghouls and Ghosts. They're some of the best ones, but you've also got Commando, Forgotten Worlds, Bionic Commando. It's a fantastic little compilation, this, and one that I think you'll really love if you can get your hands on one. Don't think this is too expensive, maybe £5-6, so you're not talking a lot for what I consider a really a good little compilation. I do still have my original Xbox fully wired up to my big modern TV. I get 5.1 sound off it. I just love it to death. Now, this is by far one of the most expensive games in my original Xbox collection, and it's one of the hardest ones to track down on the original Xbox, certainly on PAL. And this is Castlevania Curse of Darkness. Now, all the Castlevania games are sought after, and they are highly collectible. I was quite lucky in that I was able to get a sealed copy of this one, so it's never been opened. So consequently, I've not played it of late. It is the PAL one, but it's not the British PAL one. This is actually a European one, and it's actually got French, Italian and Spanish writing. So it'd be mainland Europe, this one would be. But it is an original. It's got the little hologram on there. It's a really, really nice copy of what is a super rare game. Something like this will probably sell for upwards of £50-60, this particular one, which is incredible when you think about it. If I ever do play that, it will be on a chipped Xbox, which is running them all on sort of an emulator off a hard drive. Celebrity Deathmatch. Who can forget Celebrity Deathmatch? So if you've never seen this, they are available on YouTube. People have put episodes up, and this was basically wrestling with popular figures of the time in plasticine. And the Xbox game is basically a version of that. So it's a beat 'em up, and you play different characters that were in the game, characters of the day. So you got like people like, well, who have we got here? So Carrot Top, Cleo, Shannon Doherty, Carmen Electra, Ron Jeremy, Mills Zane, Tommy Lee, Marilyn Manson, Dennis Rodman. So these were people who were celebrities back then, and they're Mr. T there, and they're fighting amongst themselves in plasticine in the ring, which is exactly what the MTV show was about. If you've never seen Celebrity Deathmatch, go and give it a try on YouTube. They're absolutely hilarious. I love them. Chase, Hollywood stunt driver. So this is pretty cool. So you would, and this is worth giving a try. So you have to do the most extravagant stunts that you can possibly come up with, which are then filmed, and you can play them back. And the more extravagant the stunt, the better you do in the game. Absolutely mental. That was a really novel idea. Oh dear. Football. So Championship Manager. This is 5. I mean, this is just one of many football games that end up in any Xbox collection. They are what they are, really, if you're into football. I did have a friend who collects all sporting games, particularly football. He was trying to get every football game for the ZX Spectrum, and you were talking maybe 300-400 games just for one system. Absolutely phenomenal. There was always one he could never get his hands on, which was called Day of the Match. So if you ever come across that one, do give me a shout. These are pretty good. This is the Chronicles of Riddick. This is a film tie-in again, Escape from Butcher Bay. This one also comes highly recommended. Lots of people speak highly of this one. So keep an eye out for that, although it's really easy to come across. It's sold quite a lot. This one is a bit harder to get. This will probably set you back £10 to £12. I don't know why. Maybe it just didn't sell very well. Classified, the Sentinel Crisis. It's a sought after game, and doesn't seem to be many copies around. So that's one you might want to keep your eyes peeled for. This is Close Command, First to Fight, the United States Marines. So I don't know, it's just sort of a first-person shooter. It's nothing too special to write home about, but it is what it is, I suppose. Now, the next two are club football games. So this is Club Football, 2003-2004 series, and this is for Arsenal. And then I've got another one, which is exactly the same game, but for Manchester United. As far as I know, there's about 25 different versions of the same game, just for different clubs. So most of the Premiership teams and the top European teams had their own version of this. And if you're into, if you're a Newcastle United fan, you buy the Newcastle United version of it. And that is what this is. So there's 20 odd of those. Those are just ones that have come my way cheap. And I'm not going to go out my way to try and get them all. As they come my way, they'll come my way, and that's that really. Colin McRae Rally. I seem to remember this is one of the ones that I got at the time the Xbox was launched. It was one of the launch games, as I recall. It's got 2002 date on it, and it's great. The Colin McRae Rally games are really good on the Xbox. They come recommended. Thankfully, they're very easy to get hold of, so they're nice little racers. Not my favourite racers, but they're good racers. Commandos, Strike Forces is one of those really sort of common games. I think they sold loads. They were well reviewed, but today I just find them unbelievably boring. Less said about that, the better. This is a bit of fun. Conan, released on the little-known TDK label. They were more famous for doing blank tapes and videos rather than anything else. Nice artwork on that. This Conan game's actually pretty good. So as you see, he quests across 5 vast regions of Hyboria. And it's sort of you develop your skills as you go along the way. There's loads of different weapons and upgrades that you can do, and you just work your way through the game, fighting boss battles along the way. Comes recommended that it's also quite scarce, that one, so you might struggle to find him. This is another one that's a difficult one to get. I need to get a new box on this one actually. Conspiracy, Weapons of Mass Destruction. Yeah, I have got the booklet for it. I'm not sure why, but this is another one that's quite rare, and will set you back perhaps about a tenner. And in fact, I see this one in the language selection. It's all in Italian, so it may be one that's particularly difficult to find with English language. Next game I absolutely love, which is Crimson Skies, High Road to Revenge. Absolutely fantastic game, this. I played it loads. All right, nowadays the graphics aren't as sharp as you perhaps might want, but it's almost like, how can you describe it? It's almost like the guy here is like an Indiana Jones guy, and he's flying around in old like biplanes initially, but he's got a base, he's got modern technology, and he's fighting almost like great big dirigibles, these big zeppelins in the sky. Fantastic stuff. So it is aerial battles in and around an island. There's like test missions where you have to go through sort of around this island, going through different like loops and fire hoops and things like this. Absolutely fantastic. Brilliant cutscenes. It's an all-round great game, and I think you will really enjoy it. In fact, look, it's got Best Xbox Live Game as well for E3 2003. Track one of those down. It's good. It's really good. Next, we've got CSI, one of many CSI games, and this is just basically it's a couple of CSI games that have been brought to life, and you sort of work your way along the clues. It's quite on rails. It is what it is. It is what it is. Conflict Desert Storm. Now, these are the sort of games that I don't think have aged very well. It says here, Xbox Magazine said, the best game of this type you can get on an Xbox. Well, maybe that's the case, but today there's so much better around and not really got a lot of replayability, something like that. Dark Summit. I think this one's quite scarce as well. Action adventure on the slopes. So this is another snowboarding game, but it's got challenges and missions, but there's also a story behind it, a bit of a conspiracy shrouded in mystery on the slopes is what it says. So it's snowboarding with a bit of a twist, and that's Dark Summit. I think that's also quite difficult to get your hands on. The next is very easy to get your hands on. Once again, this was a launch game, so I bought Colin McRae, I got Dead or Alive 3, and I got the first Halo game when the Xbox first came out. I absolutely love this game to death. I've played it through multiple times on different characters. It's still great today. It's really holds up. I just love it. It's a really great game. So highly recommended as a fantastic beat 'em up. Dead or Alive Ultimate. So on the back of that doing so well, they went back and they re-released Dead or Alive 1 and 2. And this is like a 2-pack, this one. So this has got a Dead or Alive 2 underneath there and 2 separate booklets. And it's basically the first 2 games updated with new graphics, and they're just as playable as Dead or Alive 3. Next, if I did own a copy, would be Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball, which has got the Japanese ladies with the bouncing boobies. I don't own a copy of that. Still on the wants list, I'm afraid. Last couple now, so we've got Dead to Rights, which is this is quite a fun little game. This one, a bit of a shooter. The graphics are they are quite appalling, but the gameplay's good. It's a Namco game, and they're pretty good. They were obviously used to endless arcade hits, and I don't know. It's you could say it's almost a bit of trying to be a bit of a Grand Theft Auto, sort of in a city environment that you walk around in, but still quite good. And then the final one we'll look at today is Delta Force Black Hawk Down, which is one again. It's one of those genres which this was around the time of the Gulf War, and there was quite a lot of these sort of games going around. They don't hold up that well today, but they are. They are what they are, really. They're period pieces, and they are part of the original Xbox library. So that's the first part of what will probably end up being 5 or 6 parts going through my original Xbox collection. I hope you have enjoyed going through those. If you have enjoyed the video, do please give it a thumbs up. Do please consider subscribing for regular retro gaming content. I've got quite a bit already on my channel, and I've got loads more planned and loads more to come. And there we are. I shall look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.